Think about everything that runs on a chip. Your phone, your car, hospital equipment, military systems, the GPU we talked about in the last video. Now honestly, how many places in this world do you think can make those kind of chips? Like if you had to guess, maybe 10, 20, 1. A handful of fabs, one island. 90% of the world's leading edge supply, the 2 nanometers and 3 nanometer chips that actually power the modern AI today. In that island right there, China has claimed as its own since 1949. But here's the thing that keeps people up at night. China doesn't even need to invade, just ships in the strait long enough. AI stops, your phone stops, military systems go dark. And we all just let this happen. So here's something most people don't even know. TSMC just didn't accidentally become the most valuable company in the world. Someone planned it that way. 1985. Taiwan is a small island with no natural resources, no real military muscle, sitting right next to one of the largest armies on Earth. And the government basically asked themselves, how do we make sure nobody can afford to destroy us? They find this guy, Morris Chang, senior executive at Texas Instruments, and they say, we need you to build a chip foundry. Not because Taiwan needs the revenue, because Taiwan needs to survive. The idea was almost elegant in how cold it was. If we can make ourselves so deeply embedded into how the modern world works, if Apple can make iPhone without us, if NVIDIA can make GPU without us, if every major tech company in this world depends on what we build, then nobody, not even China, can let us disappear. They called it the Silicon Shield. Make yourself indispensable and let everyone else's self-interest do the protecting. And it worked. Way beyond anything what they have imagined. Now here is where it gets more interesting. Because you think, okay, Taiwan makes the chips, and if something goes wrong, someone else will build that fab and problem will eventually be solved, right? Except there is this machine. To build a 2 nanometer or 3 nanometer chip, the kind inside your phone right now, you need a specific piece of equipment that fires extreme ultraviolet light to etch circuits onto silicon at a scale so small, you're literally working with individual atoms. One company on Earth makes this machine, ASML. A small city in Netherlands called Veldhoven. No Series A computer even exists anywhere, and each machine would cost up to $380 million. Takes years to build, and over 100,000 components sourced from 3 continents. And a single fab needs a dozen of them. So the global advanced chip supply doesn't just depend on Taiwan. It depends on Taiwan, one Dutch city, and every supplier feeding into both simultaneously. Pull any of those threads and the whole thing unravels. So whenever Taiwan comes up in the news, the conversation always goes the same direction. Will China invade? When? What does America do? And look, that is a real conversation worth having. I get it. But it's actually not even the scariest scenario. Here's what is. China doesn't even need to fire a single shot. Imagine they just park their ships in the strait. No invasion, no missiles, just blockade. Long enough just to make all those companies genuinely nervous. That's it. That's all it takes. Because the moment there's a real uncertainty about the chip supply, companies stop placing the order. Fabs quietly reduce the output. Prices start climbing up. Globally, the economic damage begins way earlier than anything physical even happens. And that is a cruel irony of the Silicon Shield. The thing designed to protect Taiwan. Being so indispensable, the world can't even function without it. Also makes Taiwan the single most valuable pressure point on global economy. The actual shield became a target. So US saw this problem and they responded with their unique way. Money, the CHIPS Act. $52 billion authorized for domestic chip manufacturing. And when you count the full private sector response it triggered, total committed investment reached $165 billion. $6.6 billion of that going directly to TSMC. They're asking, come build your fabs here in the American soil. On paper, a real solution, build a backup and reduce the dependency. Then Morris Chang, the man who literally built TSMC from absolutely nothing and who also understands chip manufacturing better than anyone else alive, stood up publicly and said, wasteful, expensive, and exercise in futility. Not skeptical, not cautious, just futility. And his reasoning was very hard to even argue with. Building the same fab in America will cost them over 50% of what this cost in Taiwan. The engineering talent pipeline doesn't even exist in the scale you need to build that. And 35 years of institutional knowledge, the kind that lives in people's head and hands, that doesn't pack into a shipping container and move to Arizona. Now, to be fair, the Arizona fabs are being built right now. Yields on initial runs are matching Taiwan's. And Japan has a TSMC fab ramping 3nm chips production by late 2026. The gap is closing, genuinely. But the bleeding edge, the 2nm chip, it stays in Taiwan for now. The backup exists, it just isn't there yet. America also had another idea running in parallel. If ASMS machine are the choke point, control the machine. Cut China off from getting new ones. The Netherlands agreed. Japan agreed. A properly coordinated technology embargo. Smart. Genuinely smart move. I give them. Except there's someone smarter. China saw it coming. For years before the restriction actually tightened, Chinese companies were buying ASML machines as fast as they possibly could, stockpiling, building up reserves of equipment that now sits inside the Chinese fabs, already paid for, already running, completely beyond the reach of any export control. But can those machines build 2nm chips? No, not yet. But they're building older nodes at a scale that's quietly reducing of how China had to depend on other Western countries for the chips or manufacturing for everything else except the absolute cutting edge. Japan and Netherlands holding the new sales on the line really matters. It really slows things down, but it didn't stop the clock. So here's the thing that sits underneath all of this. The silicon shield only works if China wants TSMC to keep running or keep working. The whole logic is if China moves on Taiwan, they destroy the very infrastructure they depend on. The economic blowback would be catastrophic, even for them. So Taiwan is safe because Taiwan right now is too valuable to even break. But here's the uncomfortable part that really nobody wants to sit with. Every year, China makes progress on its own manufacturing. Even incremental progress, the calculation shifts a little. Not enough to change anything today, but the direction of that line really enormously matters over a decade. Taiwan sees this, and they're already boosting defense spending and building more self-reliance, reducing dependence on any single ally, which makes complete sense, by the way. But it also means the geopolitical assumptions that have held for 30 years are quietly being renegotiated by everyone at once. The shield works perfectly fine, right up until the assumption underneath it changes. We started this series standing outside a data center wondering what was inside. We found the GPU. We followed the GPU all the way back here to a handful of buildings on a consistent island, making something the entire modern world runs on, and almost nobody actually thinks about. The decisions happening right now, who gets to build fabs, who gets ASML machines, how hard to push on export controls, and how much money to throw it back up that may arrive late. These aren't tech policy conversations. They are the conversation about who controls the next century, about whether AI development stays distributed across the world or gets concentrated in whoever controls the bottleneck. And they are moving way faster than any public conversations about them. So that's TSMC. NVIDIA designs the chip, TSMC builds it. And sitting behind all of that, one Dutch company making the one machine that makes any of it possible.